Hello, Cannabis fam, and welcome to another live edition of Cannabiz Africa. Today we are still in the Vaal. I think we got stuck here,
in the triangle.
In the Vaal Triangle at our campus, and we head back south.
Yeah.
It's been a busy week. There's a lot going on in the cannabis industry, which we'll be talking about as we progress through the program. We're going to look at the digital vibes scandal that has rocked cannabis reform.
Oh dear.
I can't wait to get into that one.
Oh dear.
The Agricultural Research Council is to champion SA cannabis genetics.
Woo!
What else are we covering?
So apparently the Western Cape aims to be South Africa's cannabis seed capital. Everybody wants a piece of this. And then also the Axe and Axel hemp smokables hit South African shelves. And apparently Justin Bieber is getting involved in weed.
Yeah. Lots of things going on. But without further ado, let's cross to Brett in the Cannabiz newsroom in Limpopo. Over to you, Brett.
Welcome to the Cannabiz news desk in Limpopo. We just had our first summer rains and the dagga farmers of the province are very happy. Well, the big news story at the moment is that the ripples from the digital vibes scandal have rocked the cannabis industry. The Department of Health's chief regulator, Dr. Anban Pillay, has been figured by the Special Investigative Unit as being behind the 150 million rand tender scandal that toppled Health Minister Zweli Mkhize. Dr. Pillay, who's been in charge of cannabis compliance, caused a storm in the industry in August when he told Parliament that cannabis could not be considered as a foodstuff as it had no nutritional value. This is at odds plainly with the facts, as well as with the National Cannabis Master Plan, which envisages the food and beverage sector of the marijuana industry as a way to empower small farmers. Dr. Pillay is facing criminal charges and has been suspended from his post. Cannabis stakeholders will be anxiously awaiting who will replace him as the new head of compliance and regulatory affairs, because this person will have a significant impact on how cannabis licensing will unfold in the near future. And that state-old custodian of our mealie heritage way out there in Brits, I'm talking about the Agricultural Research Council, has stepped up to the proverbial plate. It says it will champion South African cannabis genetics and has identified 12 land races which it has begun profiling. The council's Canna Mhlongo told the Northwest Government Cannabis webinar that South Africa's strains were under threat from two main sources: foreigners stealing our genetic intellectual property and contamination of local land races by foreign strains. He said the council would begin identifying and evaluating local cannabis strains and come up with molecular profiles that could at some point be registered. Seed specialist and supplier Jason Mercier of greensmokeroom.com says protecting our heritage is the way to go.
What we don't like is when guys bring foreign plants into the country and start planting them and then crossing. That's the pollen we believe maybe from like Europe that's coming here can affect our plants. And if we have very much sativa plants growing in South Africa due to our climate. If we're getting plants that we're making hybrids that turn our plants more into, like, let's say, an indica phenotype where it's very short and stubbery, we'll start seeing massive PM problems, as well as probably a lot of other issues that will follow along. But we are also lucky enough that I've seen that our landrace strains are strong enough that when we are seeing this cross-pollination going on that shouldn't, our landrace strains are strong enough that over the time we do see them fight back, and you do see that same strain that you saw 5 or 7 years ago.
That's Jason Mercier of greensmokeroom.com. Staying on the seed story, the Western Cape says it wants to be the cannabis seed capital of South Africa. It's the latest province to throw its weight behind cannabis reform. Agriculture MEC Ivan Meyer visited Felbridge Medical Cannabis last week and said the cannabis value chain offered huge opportunities for the province. Meyer congratulated the Zettler family on pioneering the cultivation of cannabis in the country. The old polka dot strawberry farm near Stellenbosch has reinvented itself to become the country's main supplier of cannabis seeds and clones and tissue culture. Meyer says the Cape wants not only to be the cannabis seed supplier, but also the hub of a new agro-pharmaceutical sector based on marijuana. Moving on to combustibles. Ace and Axel non-THC hemp smokables are now on the shelves at SPAR. They have apparently been given regulatory approval by the health department, but as what? A medical supplement? Jeff Verlinden of Separations Pharmaceutical Company takes a closer look.
Are we finally getting CBD hemp smokables in South Africa in the store? Well, that's what we want to cover today, and this throws back to actual coverage done by Business Day on a podcast where they had interviewed the founders of Alo Naturals, and they had said they'd have the first CBD hemp smokables available on shelves in South Africa. In addition, Cannabiz Africa covered this from a distribution position where these products were going to be imported and made available to the public locally. Here we can see a quick video from the actual Alo Naturals where they uploaded the presence of these products at SuperSpar. Here we can see branding on the walls, that it's present in the stores. In addition, it was also present at Tops and placed prominently behind the counter. Now, when I'd seen this release in August, I was quick to inquire from the regulator, what was the position on this product? Is it a complementary medicine? Did it need the Department of Health approval? Those type of generic questions. Now, from the website from the company, we can actually see that this is a 20 milligram per smokable, with a total of 400 milligrams per pack, no THC present. Considering they asked for the Department of Health's approval, I would imagine this would be treated to some extent as a complementary medicine, but not sure about that fully because this wouldn't be the typical format I would see it taking, because generally those type of indications or products would require good manufacturing practices within the pharmaceutical line of thinking, not industrial, to produce a complementary medicine. At the end of the day, this is very interesting for me because it does raise the question that's been going around on, products containing CBD, veterinary products, edibles, beverages. There hasn't been enough feedback on the regulatory position yet, and I think it's good to see companies releasing products in stores with consumers. The only question is, how will the regulatory roadwork work out going forward, and what are the quality considerations that are being applied to these products, considering they're getting into the hands of consumers? So let's hope to know more and see more from the industry on how this all develops.
That's Jeff Verlinden from Separations. So that's it from the Cannabis Africa and Cannasphere news desk for today. The big story in the news is that Dr. Anban Pillay has been suspended from his post as head of regulatory affairs at the health department. And we wait anxiously and eagerly to see who will replace him, Trenton, because a lot depends on this. Here we are, SAPRA is only giving licenses for indoor grows. And dear God, we are an outdoor country. I mean, there's something's got to change in the regulatory framework. SAPRA always hides behind the rules and says they're only a compliance body. And it's really somebody in the health department who's going to step up and actually give the political clout that will help open up licensing, if we are to go that route, to all South African farmers who want to grow marijuana. And let us not forget that Dr. Pillay was the guy who misled Parliament by saying that cannabis had no nutritional value and therefore could not be considered as a foodstuff.
Yeah, it's quite a scandal actually, considering that statement. I mean, when he made that statement, it kind of rocked the industry. As a cannabis industry, we were deeply shocked by those comments. And it just kind of reinforces the fact that there is definitely hidden agendas in what he was saying. The fact that these corruption cases are against him, and it's actually, as much as I like to see people fall that are corrupt, it's also very sad because it has damaged the cannabis industry and has damaged the perspective and perception of the cannabis industry. So any drama that happens in this space, even if it is pulling people down that have been doing sort of things they shouldn't have been doing, is just not good for business, for cannabis. So it's disappointing, but at least it's being dealt with, and we must move on. What I find very interesting is the Jeff's comments on whether the smokables are a complementary medicine. I can pretty much guarantee that no doctor in the world would say that smoky medicine, man. Yeah, I mean, first of all, when you're combusting, you lose a lot of the medicinal benefits. So I think somehow that's snuck under the radar, and it's just all over the place, Brett, isn't it? Really.
That is a crazy thing, Trenton and Linda, because at the moment South Africa's stuck in defining cannabis as a medicine. And therefore, we're getting ourselves into such tangles, because then to bring in hemp smokables, you have to have sort of health department approval. And, there's no framework for bringing in, it's like asking the Department of Health to the Surgeon General of America to back, Camel cigarettes or whatever. It's a crazy thing. Hemp smokables should not really be part under the SAPRA framework.
Absolutely, and I think it just demonstrates how connected the health department and SAPRA are from the realities of what this industry is, which is disappointing.
Yeah.
But anyway, I love what Jordan had to say about our genetics fighting back.
Yeah.
Durban, I'm gonna punch you in the face.
These are African genetics. You must understand and recognize.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, let's cross over to the lighter side of cannabis with Noxy, who is back in Johannesburg. And over to you, Noxy.
Thanks, Trenton and Linda and Brett. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Canna News Lifestyle Desk with me, the Kush Queen, back in Johannesburg, bringing you all things local and international lifestyle, art, and entertainment in the Cannasphere. Speaking of international, America is leaps and bounds ahead of us, so it comes as no surprise that more celebrities are expressing their cannabis use and monetizing it. Justin Bieber has officially entered the cannabis market in collaboration with cannabis brand Palm Premium. The brand Peaches is a limited edition run weed product that comes in a sleek, stylized pre-rolled joint pack. It will be sold in 4 of the legal states: California, Nevada, Florida, and Massachusetts. If you happen to be visiting the States and want to try the Peaches out in Georgia and get your weed in California, expect to pay in the range of 800 to 1,000 rands for Bieber's cannabis pack. And that is all from the Cannasphere Lifestyle News Desk this week. Back to you, Trenton and Linda and Brett.
It's funny, we had this conversation this morning, about all this stuff that's happening overseas, and it's just moving so fast.
Yeah.
And we just had this whole thing about us really feeling like we're being left behind. It's very frustrating because there's just so much innovation happening in the States, and innovation starting to push forward in Europe, and all these other developing economies are coming online, and we're just sitting on our hands, fumbling along like fools, which is incredibly frustrating, So, I mean, whether you believe that Justin Bieber should be in cannabis or not, just even look at the way that it's packaged and designed, and it's just so next level, and so, yeah, it's a bit disappointing.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think also the other thing that also upsets us is because we're trying so hard to get into this industry and get it running, but it's almost as if like the starting blocks haven't been put in yet, and the government is still figuring out what this thing is. I mean, the fact that we're still talking about does cannabis have nutritional value, you're already like, wow, it's far away from actually getting involved into this industry.
Absolutely. Tomorrow we actually attend an event in the Val. If you're watching this after this has happened, we'll have already attended it. But it's basically to launch the Val area as a cannabis hub officially. So that should be exciting. So there is a lot of stuff happening. But what I don't think the government understand is how urgent the speed on this is, because we are losing traction. Already there's the debacles over the hemp permits. We're in danger of missing a full hemp season. If you want to take the whole THC out of the equation and go, well, what can hemp do for our economy? How can hemp benefit farmers? Farmers can really use hemp on a practical level to create oils and soaps and hempcrete. To miss another season is just absolutely terrible. So we're really hoping things move. I looked at this interesting slide, which we could just pull up, Linda, which basically outlines how things are. By 2025, the industry is going to be worth 33 billion on the adult side and 15 billion on the medicinal side. It's quite interesting because a year or two ago, medicinal and recreational adult use were toe for toe, but recreational or adult use has gone through the roof, and I think that's a sign of our times. People, cannabis is a real lifter, and with all the darkness going on this planet, I think that COVID and the challenges of the environment and cannabis. It's just fueling cannabis uptake. So I was really interested to see the difference in demographics between medicinal and recreational.
So I'm still getting around I thought there was space in the cannabis industry for everybody, but I mean, Justin Bieber and a brand called Peaches, Jesus
I
wept.
thought you were a fan, Brett.
But okay,
Justin.
it's an interesting to pick up on the point that you're talking about recreational or medical use. I think that's like the difference is Western ideology, in my view. I heard a very interesting panel discussion by Prohibition Partners saying the evolution of cannabis markets would be heading towards high THC adult use, and it would get there either through medical means or free adult market or through combustibles or edibles. But if you have to look at the evolution of a market and where products will be developed, that is where it's going to go. And the big fight in the future will be between combustibles and non-combustibles.
Absolutely, yeah. I think what people need to understand is that as human beings, we like to change our focus. We like to escape, that's how we're programmed. That's why we drink so much alcohol.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
using cannabis, for recreational purposes, for fun, getting high and having a laugh, we don't see anything wrong with that. So I think there's all this conversation about medicinal and industrial, but what about just wanting to get stoned? Like a lot of people just want to get drunk. What about that? What's wrong with that? What's wrong with admitting I'm just going to go home and I'm going to get high? Why? Because I can. Because I want to.
Because I can.
Because it's fun.
And because it's fun.
Yeah.
And because it's beneficial for our mental health. In Justin's defense, he did have a documentary that he released a couple of years ago on YouTube where he openly spoke about his use of cannabis to combat his very deep depression and anxiety, and cannabis was one of the things that he was using. So that's where his love for cannabis sparked, because it helped him through a very difficult time, hence the collaboration with this Palm brand that he's now doing the smokables with. And what if we just want to get high, guys? Like, should we die? Because people go home and have a glass of wine, and that's okay. I should be able to go home and have a joint, and that be okay. I mean, come on, it's 2021. Guys, are we even going to see a share of this 33 billion? Like, real talk.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, we cannabis. But I take your point about Justin Bieber, and maybe I'm being a bit ageist and trite, but it is good to see the sort of traditional stereotypes around cannabis branding being reggae sort of idols, etc., moving much more into the mainstream. It'll come with good taste and bad taste, but the fact that it's happening is good.
Definitely.
I agree. All right, guys.
So funny
on
that you say
high
that,
note,
because sorry, Trenton. Just one last thing. Snoop Dogg recently released an article where he was speaking about who should and shouldn't benefit from cannabis, and he made his stance very clear. So no, Brett, you are not being extra. He also believes that the people who have been on the ground doing this for many, many years should be the ones who benefit the most, because now every second celebrity wants to now cash in on cannabis just because they can.
Yeah. Well, he's also cashed in on cannabis,
As
he should. It's Snoop Dogg,
smoking forever.
Yeah, forever. He's the OG. He's the OG. Okay, guys. On that high note, until next week, let's say goodbye.
Cheers,
Next week, we're going to have some very interesting stories on cannabis and space.
Okay,
next
horror.
Cheers, guys. See you next week.
Ciao.
Peace and love. Bye.